It's the last lap to the US election, with so much resting on it for the diaspora. Well, I'm Damion Mitchell, and joining me today to look at the US 2020 elections are Dr. Basil Wilson, former professor at the John Jay College of Criminal Justice and political commentator; Erwin Clare, director of the Caribbean Immigrant Services; Ainsworth Powell, he's a nurse and a former member of the Jamaican Police Force and is a Republican supporter. And we also have Narda Morant, educator and businesswoman and a Democratic supporter. Also joining us, we have Dahlia Walker Huntington, an immigration attorney, in fact, a general attorney in the United States. So let me begin with you, Doc. What are the general issues that are getting your attention going into election 2020?
I think the most pressing issue is the pandemic. We've had a serious uptick in the coronavirus throughout the United States. The second critical issue is the recovery of the economy. We're in something of a recession, with about 22 million people who are unemployed. And the third issue is the question of race and whether America can really come together through a Truth and Reconciliation Commission and deal with the question of race.
Dahlia Walker Huntington, what are the big issues for you going into Tuesday?
Well, I certainly agree with Dr. Wilson, the pandemic, the economy, and the issue of race. But I would also add just the entire reputation of America. America as we know it is really on the ballot, because what we've seen over the last 4 to 5 years is a complete reversal of the values that we've come to know as Americans. And Jamaicans as immigrants, we have been coming in droves, primarily since the 1970s, but we have always been coming to America. My family came to Ellis Island in the 1920s and 30s, so we've been coming. But what those of us who've come since the 1970s have come to expect, and the world has come to expect from America, a certain level of dignity, integrity, reputation, and we have seen that being eroded over the last 5 years. So I think the coming together of Americans, of all Americans, around the issues that Dr. Wilson raised are what we're seeing really people are wanting to see as the outcome of this election.
We'll pick up on some of those issues in a short while, but let me bring in Narda Morant here. You are an educator. What for you are the primary issues?
Just to piggyback on Dahlia and Dr. Wilson, clearly the economy, we know COVID-19 has been the disruptor across the board. It's not, in one particular generation, that generation could say, well, here you have baby boomers, Generation X, Z, Y, all facing pretty much one of the most devastating disruptor in all of our lives. For some people, it's healthcare. For my students, is a quality education. That's something I'm really concerned about. And another issue is just the continuing blatant discrimination and social injustice that's perpetrated every day, even as recent as a couple of days ago, but we'll talk about that a little bit more later.
And for you, Erwin Clare, what are the big issues going into election 2020?
Ditto on what's been said. I want to go more a little finite from the community from which I live. And immigration is topical, because subsets for immigration, from my perspective, has to do with the values of America today as it treats immigrants. The whole situation of economy, because we have seen where the economy was supposedly robust, but we had significant challenging immigration laws that prohibited many from participating there. And the same situation for healthcare. If the whole immigration situation is not streamlined, we have 11 million persons in this country who are exposed, especially in this whole pandemic. And of course, the whole aspect of systemic racism, because that too has also heightened the intensity and the negativity towards immigration. And albeit the whole aspect of opportunity, America, the country that is prized on those premises, have faltered.
Let me come now then to Ainsworth Powell, because you would have some of those similar concerns, but in general, what are the other main concerns for you going into election 2020?
Okay, well, of course, The pandemic, as was mentioned, is the big elephant in the room, and how it has been managed. Are we going to lock down our economy and put our state in a state of depression? Are we going to manage it, doing social distancing, and make sure you sanitize and wear your mask? You know, are we going to lock down our schools? Children are suffering. Nobody talks about the amount of suicide rate that has gone up in the country. You know, and kids are basically dying at home. They're not learning nothing. Their education has been compromised because 3-4-year-old kids cannot stay on the computer for 6 or 8 hours. They just don't have that attention span. So they're basically, the education has been compromised, and a lot of people don't really take the online learning. They cannot handle it in rather classroom setting. So that is definitely one. The pandemic, the death rate has gone down. It has been trending down. However, the infection rate is going up. And I assume that because of more testing and because of more testing, you're going to have more cases. And because people are what I call pandemic fatigue, they're giving up basically wearing masks and deciding, you know what, I can't be bothered. The other issue for me is the anarchy, which I'm seeing going on in the streets, when they're looting. People were saying that Black Lives Matter, which to me, Black Lives Matter started as a good organization, but it has delved into anarchy and pandemonium. People are turning against it because they're seeing their businesses are being looted. Black businesses are being looted. You know, black businesses there's black businesses around me right now that have closed since the looting happened here in Bronx and have not opened up back, and that's jobs that's going. People are unemployed because of that, and that's black-owned businesses that are being destroyed. And people are reaching the stage where they're getting fatigued of seeing the violence and crime, and under the guise of Black Lives Matter. I mean, they have stolen.
Let's pick up on some of those issues in a short while, but I want to go back to Dr. Basil Wilson, who earlier was speaking about the issue of democracy and discrimination. And I want to ask you, what turns on an election in seeking to rectify these issues?
One of the issues that have come up for this election is that Mr. Trump has been ambivalent about his willingness to give up power if he loses the election. And it has created a certain amount of fear. And some people are very much concerned about violence in the streets, both on election day and in the post-election period. It's quite clear that based upon the mailing, voting, and the whole voting process, that we might not have a clear winner on November the 3rd, but it could take us quite a few weeks before all the ballots are counted. And so one of the things about a democratic society, whether it's in Jamaica, Barbados, or in the United States, you got to have an adherence to a democratic culture, a commitment to fairness, and not a willingness to criminalize your opponent. One of the sickness about the present occupant in the White House is his propensity to criminalize his opponents, his inability to understand what it is, what it means to be a decent human being. And he has really corrupted the system to the point where it is now quite detrimental to the United States, not only within the United States, but even in terms of how people see the United States in the world.
Well, let's ask Nadia Morant to come in here, because you were also speaking about the issue of race relations. Why does so much hang on this 2020 election in the United States?
Well, you know, you have your young people, your college grads who are of the voting bloc. You have those who just finished high school. All their hopes were dashed with COVID-19. And then simultaneous to all the fallouts in the different segment of society, you're looking at blatant bigotry and racism coming from the White House. So when you talk about a marginalized people and systemic racism, put in a corner where we don't have jobs, education is sort of a big question mark at this point, and now you're asking us to vote, you're going to hear and see a louder response. Some will perceive it as aggression. Am I for looting and stuff? Absolutely not, because at the end of the day, no one wins. That's not a win-win solution. But I do believe that with the sleeping giant, so to speak, and the apathy that has pervaded in prior elections. It's a ripe time because of COVID. Folks are at home, they're watching, they're looking, and the young people, the voting bloc, they are eager to vote. In looking at some numbers today, 78 million US registered voters have already voted, which is just about half, greater than what voted in the 2016 election, 2018 rather, 2008 rather. So folks are voting. The young people are voting.
Well, let me pick up right on that and also put that same question to Delia Walker-Huntington. What are you picking up in respect of the interest of the young people to participate in the process this time round, and particularly as it relates to those issues we've been talking about, that of democracy and that of racial inequities?
Well, the demographics, I think all demographics are going to show up in greater numbers than they did in 2016. Certainly the young people, there are millions of young people who came of age, turned 18 in the last 4 years. And for them, one of the big things is not only racial equality, but climate change. They are concerned about their future. And this president has shown that he doesn't believe in science. He's discredited all of the scientific knowledge that points to the climate changing, opened up previously protected lands from mining and logging, including national parks. So the young people are very concerned about climate change. They are certainly concerned about the racial injustice that they see being played out. It's, I heard Mr. Powell talk about Black Lives Matter. When you look at the protests that we've seen, particularly over the summer, you see two different types of protests unfolding over a day's, in a day's time. You see people coming out and peacefully protesting, and as night comes, there's another set of protesters that come out who turn into looting. And funny enough, the people who have been arrested in various cities for looting and burning have actually been right-wing people who have come out, the Proud Boys, the Boogaloo Boys. They're the ones who are coming out and looting and burning in the name of Black Lives Matter. And so we have this dichotomy that is going on that is fueled by the president with his racist tendencies and stoking all these flames. So the young people don't want to be fighting the fights that our grandparents fought and that we fought. They want to see a different America where there is healing and unity moving forward. And they, I think, have been more disturbed by what's been going on than those of us who are middle-aged and older. So that demographic is coming out. They're also coming out for gun reform. I'm in South Florida where we had the Parkland shooting and all of these school shootings around the country where guns are so easily accessible. Nobody is calling for a denial of your Second Amendment rights. I'm a gun owner, but I'm for responsible gun ownership. And this is what young people want to see because they're affected. They're traumatized by the fact that their classmates have not been able to graduate because of this propensity for gun violence.
Well, certainly there are some other issues which may be related that we will want to pick up on, among them that of immigration and just what is at stake. But let's move back to Ainsworth Powell, who is a nurse, and he was telling us about the issue of the COVID pandemic and how it has been impacting the people in the United States. Why do you think that will be at the forefront on the ballot come November 3?
Simple. People want to work. People want to go back to normalcy. People want to go back to being able to go to parties and enjoy themselves and have a life. Most people don't have a life now. You can't even take a vacation. You go to Jamaica, you have to go on 2 weeks quarantine. That's ridiculous. You know, people want to go back to normalcy. And as a result, people are fatigued, or pandemic fatigue, I call it. And as I said in New York, when the pandemic hit us, everybody's pants was down. Everybody's pants. Nobody knew what was coming. You know, Nancy Pelosi was in Chinatown in California telling everybody to come out. I remember clearly Joe Biden saying this is xenophobic when he shut down the economy from the Chinese and saying xenophobic, why shut it down? No, so nobody knew exactly what was going on. You understand? Everybody, in retrospect, this is hindsight, 2020, is retrospect. You understand? You can always look back and say you could have done it, you should have done that. But when it was happening, everybody was on the side of don't lock down the economy, you're xenophobic, you're this and that. But now it's proven that he was right. He should have locked down the economy, probably even earlier. Understand?
Well, let me put this question to you, because you're a Republican supporter. So let me put this question to you then. I mean, do you feel that it will affect President Trump come election day, the fact of his handling of the COVID issue?
People are going to say in retrospect that you should have locked it down earlier. You locked it down what? Very early. I think you had like 1 or 2 cases, like 4 cases I think was in America when you locked it down. I mean, you couldn't lock it down any quicker than that. It's a bear in mind how he's handling of it. People are going to look at it and say, you know what? He did his best given the circumstances. He didn't want to lock down everything in terms of the economy, shut down everything down. It was projected there was 2.2 million people would have died if he didn't do anything. I mean, at the end of it, 200,000 died. I think 220,000 going on now died. So basically, you could say save 2 million lives by locking it down. So you had to lock it down. But once you get an understanding of how the disease is and the disease processes, which none of us knew what it was, but now that we understand how it operates, the drugs that can help it and are treating it, and the therapeutics that are now available, it's now for we to gradually open back up and continue the social distances, continue to wear the mask, but we have to open back up. You're gonna have a depression which the country cannot even recover from now. We have seen Europe. Look at Europe is going through the doldrums right now.
Let's move to Erwin Clear. He operates a business in the United States, and he may very well have been bitten by the impact of COVID-19. Erwin Clear, how much of an issue you think this will be on the ballot come November 3?
100%. Clearly, and respect due to Mr. Paul, Mr. Paul highlights the world we live in today. And the world we live in today is one which we have, and we are all responsible for it. But we have a person there at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue who has been perpetrating this type of rhetoric on the world we live in today. The fact that there's a pandemic, nobody is blaming President Trump for the pandemic. The challenge is that he did not and have not managed it well. And that's a fact, because we have 227,000 persons and counting who have died today. And even though the death rate may be lower, the death rate is higher in the very states that were adhering to his so-called rules. And we see those spiking numbers. And even to this day, no, excuse me, sir. I listen to your rhetoric.
No,
I don't agree. Let me finish, sir. And even to this day, we still have persons out there who are perpetrating the fact that, not even listening to the scientists, to those who have the facts. So yes, it has affected me, and I'm upset. But I also recognize that 227 persons have died, including my brother. I am pissed. So when to hear somebody talk about a lockdown early or whatever, we're talking about the management of it. And it squarely sits at the president's table because he is the person in charge. And so people going out to vote, that is their number one issue. And you can't go around the corner on that one.
Well, let me allow Ainsworth Powell to respond. And I saw Delia Walker Huntington shaking her head, so I'll also give her a back to this one. Ainsley, go ahead.
Well, my condolences to the fact that you lost your brother. No one likes to know the losing less of their family.
Sorry, we're losing you.
I said, my condolences to you for losing a brother, sir. I'm sorry to hear about that, from the bottom of my heart. I also lost a family member as well from the COVID. And my neighbors, 2 of my neighbors, died from it. The fact that we lost 200 and some thousand going on, sir, and you must understand this. And if you looked at the CDC report, it was projected it was 2.2 million that should have died. Therefore,
that's just not true.
Well, you know what? Go to the CDC website and check it yourself.
No,
go to the CDC website and check it yourself.
Listen, you're drinking the Kool-Aid.
Do the math on that.
Let me allow him to finish, and then we'll give you a chance.
All right, leave me a chance to finish talking, okay? Bottom line is, when the disease process come, none of us knew what was going on. doctors at the hospital that I was working was mistreating and misdiagnosing patients, giving them ventilators and blowing their lungs. 80% of the patients we had on ventilators was dying. You understand? So ventilator was one of the causes. Now we know we're not going to give them ventilator. We'd rather put them on high flow oxygen and let them, the whole incentive breathing takes place. And if they deteriorate thereon, we could put them on low ventilator settings. We are blowing their lungs. I basically was going to work on begging patients not to die on me. So I've seen the death rate. I've gone to work as a 3-4 patients that I've taken care of died on by the time I reach home. So nobody can sit there and say I don't see it. I see it, but I said we are now able to manage the disease process better. We understand the whole process, how it works. We're treating it. We have therapeutics in place. Right now at the hospital where I'm at, we have no COVID cases dying. We have a lot of infection rates spiking recently, but we are managing them and they are going home. So we need to gradually
yesterday there were over 1,000 people who died in the United States of America. We are the only industrialized country that has mismanaged the pandemic. If you look like Taiwan, South Korea, China, New Zealand, they have been able to manage the pandemic in such a way where there has not been the sort of enormous loss of life that we have seen in the United States. In some years ago in China, there's a man called Jim Jones who was able to get cyanide. And what you have done is to bought into Trump's Kool-Aid. And you need to, in fact, think critically.
You compare a country leader to the president. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Let me allow you to come in here, Dale Walker Huntington, and then we will move to the issue of immigration.
Let's get some facts clear. Donald Trump did not lock down America. He did not. It's up to the governors to lock down. New York was locked down because of Andrew Cuomo. I live in Florida. We were not locked down. Individual counties put in place mask mandates and stay-at-home orders in order to minimize the spread of the virus. So let's get that clear. When Joe Biden says that Donald Trump was xenophobic in terms of shutting down China, he was right, because the virus that hit the East Coast of America did not come from China. It came from Europe. And Donald Trump has continued to call the virus the China virus. He knew. Did you listen to the tapes when he spoke with Bob Woodward? He knew that the virus was detrimental. He knew it was worse than the flu. He knew it was going to spread and contaminate millions of Americans. But because he prioritized his re-election over the lives of American citizens, he allowed us to go out there in March without knowing that we could have contaminated each other and killed each other. He allowed this. Nobody's saying he caused the virus, but his handling of the virus is a reason why millions of Americans, more than any other industrialized country, contracted the virus, why hundreds of thousands have died, and why we are in the economic state that we're in now. We cannot just say open up the economy when he's out there mocking people for wearing masks. He will not say that you must wear masks and show an example of wearing masks. He continues to hold super spreaders at the White House, exposing people to the virus, exposing his supporters to the virus. And all he's saying is open up the economy, showing that herd immunity is what we're supposed to do. So what does herd immunity mean? I'm not willing for any of my family members to die so that the economy can thrive. We need to have a concerted approach. And that's why Joe Biden is leading in the polls, because he has a plan, which Donald Trump does not have a plan.
Erica Berger has a question. I'll allow Erica to go now, and then we'll come back with the issue of immigration. Erica?
Yes, hi, everybody. The United States has a long history of the mistreatment of Blacks and other ethnic groups. That is the reason for the Martin Luther King's War and the Malcolm X's and all of the fights for it. So this Black Lives Matter issue is, I reject it, that it is the cause of the looting and all of that. It has a criminal element to it, but the history of the undereducation and mistreatment of minority groups in the United States is primarily is the reason for all of this. So I want to ask the question, will a Trump re-election or a Biden win improve in any way race relations in the United States?
Let me put that to Professor Wilson, and then I'd like to get the take of Erwin Clare on that.
The strategy of Mr. Trump, the campaign that he has been running, is a racist campaign. He has in fact tried to appeal to suburban women, making the case that Black and brown people are going to be coming into the suburbs, their well-being, and to reduce their real estate values. So what he has done,
that's wrong.
The divisiveness in the country, and what Biden is attempting to do is to bring the country together to make certain that we can in fact achieve the American dream, to make this it a city on the hill, rather than just throwing more and more, and is encouraging more and more conflict. So there's no question that if Biden wins the election, we have a possibility of putting America back together again like Humpty Dumpty, and really ensuring that some kind of racial reconciliation can take place. One of the things that we've been suffering from is the kind of excesses taking place in the criminal justice system. And one of the things that we need to really work on is really doing some of the kind of reforms among the police departments so that they can become much more in tune with communities, less violent, and in fact make certain that you can in fact make an investment in communities to the point where you can continue to reduce crime.
Delia?
Certainly, America's history is tainted in terms of the way that she treated Black people and people of color going back to slavery. We have evolved from that. We have tried to work with it with laws that were passed in the 60s and the 70s. And what we've seen since Donald Trump came in is a fueling of white supremacy that has brought about a sort of license to people to be prejudiced and hateful. I mean, the internet is filled, social media is filled with stories of white people calling the police on children because they're selling lemonade on the side, because people are barbecuing in the park. All of these minor things, and accosting Black people driving nice cars. Where did you get that car? And just carrying on in such a fashion because the leader gave them license to be this way.
Can I say something on that?
I don't even think some of these people, I don't even think that they were. They thought that they were.
Just 1 second, please.
But the fact,
yes, go ahead, Mrs.
Yeah, but the fact that the leader sets the standard by which these people now feel free to come out into the open, march out of fields with tiki torches, and tell us that you will not replace us. You know, and then for him to say there are fine people on both sides, and to tell the Proud Boys to stand back and stand by. This is the climate that's been created. And so it's a shame that in 2020, we're fighting the same battles that were fought in the 1950s and 60s.
Yes. Let me allow Mr. Powell to make a quick response before we move into immigration. Mr. Powell, you have 15 seconds.
Damion, Erwin had wanted to come
in. Oh, was Erwin? I'm sorry. I thought it was Mr. Powell who was trying to get in.
I was trying to get in.
Mr. Powell too. But
okay, Erwin, so let me allow you, Mr. Powell, and then Erwin. Can you take 15 seconds to deal with this, Mr. Powell?
Okay, definitely. I mean, you have to understand, Joe Biden is not going to bring back any unity. Joe Biden is in politics for himself. You can see from recent revelations how he has enriched himself.
Yeah, can we move on? Can we really move on?
Joe, no, let me finish because let me finish, sir. I have some manners and respect.
No.
I have some manners and I listen to you.
Hold on, Mr. Powell. Mr. Powell, please.
Let me finish.
I'll allow you 15 seconds to make your point, and then we'll allow.
No, you have to add me another 10 seconds because it just took away 5.
Go ahead, Mr. Powell.
You can see, if you look on Rudy Giuliani website right now, you can see postings of Hunter Biden documents where he and his father agreed to some contracts
Oh
That's
my
the former
goodness.
police officer.
That is
I can
more
see the
facts.
evidence.
Okay,
I see the
can I
evidence. You
say
can hold your head in the sand
Facts.
and don't
Can I say
pretend
something?
and
I'd like to say
fool him
something.
that the
Hold
man
a
is not
second.
corrupt. The
I'd
man
like
is
to say
entirely
something.
corrupt.
I think it's good
If
time
we
now
are
for us to
here-
move the issue
I,
to
as a detective,
immigration.
know what
No,
evidence is. That's first direct
but we
evidence.
have to have some
Mr.
facts here.
Powell?
Donald
Hold on.
Trump is the
Can we
most
mute?
corrupt and lawless president that this
Moderator,
country has
can you
ever
mute?
seen.
Can you use your muting ability?
Let me move on
please?
to the issue of immigration, and I'd like to invite Mrs.
Damion,
Yeah.
Erica had asked a question that
I'm
she
sorry,
addressed
Mr.
to
Clear.
Dr. Wilson. Yes,
Yes,
Damion,
forgive me. Yes,
Erica had asked a question that she addressed to Dr. Wilson and myself. Dr.
yes.
Wilson responded.
Very
I
well. Go
didn't.
ahead,
So-
Mr. Clear.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I'm not gonna go into the whole Trump situation, all right? And you ask about going forward about the possibility of
Reconciliation.
what would Biden do? Race, all right? The fact that probably Joe Biden is in a better position to deal with it, it also says too that the electorate at this time, based on you would have seen the activities that took place over the summer, that there's and the results, some of the results that came from it, no way legislation could have brought about that. What that says to politicians and those who ascribe to lead is that you now have a more attuned electorate. I don't think that going forth, just as though we've always been told that Democrats take Black people's vote for granted, I don't buy into that narrative. The question will be, what do we do about it? Because you see, at the end of the day, yes, politicians come to us for our votes, but after elections are over, what do we do? How do we engage ourselves to move the policies and the plans that we have? And the fact that we have a sister all the way with roots from Center and who will be on that ticket, we also have vested interest to recognize that this is our moment. So I don't buy into this narrative that it will be business as usual, because I am aggressively, and along with many of my friends, are looking forward to how we move the dial to the next level. Because this election is of such importance, but not only that, the past 4 years. And might I say one other thing? And I like to I like to stay in my lane, in the immigration lane. There's a gentleman in the White House by the name of Stephen Miller, who supposedly have these things in a drawers waiting to come out with shock and awe as it relates to more pandemonium in the immigration sphere. So all of us who believe that somehow we have some kind of comfort level here, I just need to step 5 minutes from where I am right now in Roseville into Long Island, and there are people who be looking at me and saying things because they're emboldened by today's activities. That becomes worse, my brothers and sisters, if this person is allowed another 4 years.
That's a good segue for us to get into Delia Walker Huntington, who will address this issue now as to the rank of importance that immigration is carrying for this 2020 US election. Delia?
It is top of mind for immigrants, Damion, because the administration has set about to systematically unravel immigration, legal immigration to the United States. Donald Trump came down those gold staircase and attacked Mexicans and called them names and proposed to be attacking illegal immigration. But as a practitioner, what I have seen is that there is a systematic dismantling of the immigration system by this administration to eliminate almost all avenues for families to reunite. The basis of immigration in America is family reunification. It has been decried as chain migration, as if something is wrong with it, unless it's Melania bringing her parents and her family over. Everybody else, is something wrong with it. And so, along with Stephen Miller, who Erwin mentioned, the legal migration has been under attack because, and you have to come back to where they're coming from with this. It's not just from a matter of hatred, but it's a matter of self-preservation, where Steve Bannon and the alt-right, along with Stephen Miller's, their philosophy from 2015 is that if America cuts immigration, then America will reach 100% employability and they will never lose an election. And that is the premise by which they've attacked not just family migration, but business migration. Businesses that need employees from all over the world have been under attack. So this is a premise by which these people have moved forward. And so people understand that because people are impacted. The young people under DACA, the people who are here under TPS, they have family members who are here and don't want to see their brother who's been here for 20 years from Nicaragua having to be deported. So people are using that as a catalyst by which to vote against Donald Trump.
We have the issue of health insurance that we have to address before we close this section of our editors forum, but I want to hear from Nada Morant on this issue of immigration and why is it such a big ticket item on the ballot for 2020?
With what Dahlia said about a president who has set out, number one, through the COVID visa ban, and pretty much made some stringencies in place in terms of, minor infractions that you could lose your green card. That's number one. But, he's a nationalist and he wants to have a blue blood America. So, and of course, we know historically the number for the Caucasian population is declining while you have the brown and the Black population, growing at exponential rate. So you have a mindset in this country, which is heralded by Trump, that shut the borders down and do exactly what Dahlia had said in terms of making America great, meaning making America all area nation, all white. So those, you've seen an uptick in those who are green card holders becoming citizens, because now you have at least three, minor, could be minor, but clearly could cause green card holders to lose that privilege, over extended vacation, not, saying that they're immigrants on their tax return, and not even registering for the draft, so everything is afoot to make sure that whatever little privileges you have after you come through Ellis Island, now you come through on a plane, you will lose just like that because there's an agenda afoot.
Our time is running out very, very fast, but I have to touch the issue of health insurance because it is another big ticket item on the ballot for the election 2020. And I think it's a good time to bring in back Ainsworth Powell on this matter of insurance. Why is health insurance such a critical issue on the ballot for 2020?
One of the reasons what is the Affordable Care Act, otherwise known as the Obamacare. Right now they have legislation before the Supreme Court to clarify it. The goal for them is to clarify it as being unlawful, especially the individual mandate, which if you really look at it, it's a tax, and as such, it is unlawful.
What are you finding among your peers, though? What are
John Roberts was wrong on the ruling on that, saying it wasn't a tax on that. Just let you know, legally, that's debatable. Anything you have to pay, mandated to pay, is a tax. Okay, you can laugh daily, but that's true. Okay.
Mr. Moderator,
also
one at a time.
Let me finish. So health insurance is an issue. Yeah. My idea of health insurance is that we had certain we call them HCO, healthcare organizations. They had like 2 or 3 payers, Medicaid payers in New York, were monopolized the cost of healthcare, and as such, healthcare was the price of healthcare was being managed by 2 to 3 organizations, which basically was setting prices. As such, my idea of healthcare, it should be open up. We should be able to buy health insurance across states, similar to like how you buy your insurance for your car, where you are the customer and basically the health insurance company will come to you.
Powell, let me ask you the question though. Why is it such a big issue for your payers? Is it that they're dissatisfied with what exists?
Definitely so. A lot of people, health insurance costs have gone up. Their deductibles have skyrocketed. People used to pay $30, are coming in are paying $300. I know people have $1,000 deductible. That, to me, that's like no insurance. You understand? You go into a doctor office and you have to take out $1,000 deductible. You basically don't have an insurance, man. You understand? And the price has gone up because, go ahead.
I'd like to jump in. If there was never a COVID-19, we would have been going down the merry, dysfunctional healthcare system as usual. Here came along COVID-19 and everyone's eyes open to, wait a minute, there really is disparity among the have and the have-nots, the browns and the not so brown colors. That was what so evidenced the disproportionate death rates, number one. Healthcare, the cost is a barrier. A lot of people have died, at least 98,000 every year, okay, because of lack of health care. 50% of the US workers, they get their health care, supported and subsidized by their employer. The other 25%, whether you're a veteran, whether, you have COBRA, which is very expensive, but healthcare has moved up big time on this ticket, this election, because of what COVID has revealed, the vulnerability of our healthcare system. It's not working. It's never worked necessarily, but more so now you're seeing the evidence of it. And it has brought to the forefront the need for good nutrition. A lot of folks have died of COVID because of underlying problems, your diabetes, your hypertension. So healthcare is coming to the fore.
Can I just jump back in?
We're almost out of this segment, but let me bring
I'd just like to ask Mr. Powell. What is Donald Trump's plan to replace the ACA? Do you know it? Do you know what that plan is? Because he doesn't know what the plan is. Do you know what his plan is?
I have an idea what the plan is. I was hinting before I was.
You know more than he does because he doesn't have a plan.
No, you just hold on.
Can I put healthcare in context?
It would give me 1 second. Give me 1 second, this, Mr. Wilson. It would make you determinant of the plan you want. So therefore, for example, you'll be able to buy health insurance across borders, which would cut costs.
That's what you want.
You remember?
That's your thoughts.
You remember
that's
when
your thought, Mr. Powell. I'm asking you what is Donald Trump's plan?
All right. That's been the Republican plan, and that's the plan that he will be monitoring. But you remember when we had just 2 or 3 telephone companies in New York? We had AT&T, we had
9X. You had Marbell, 9X.
We had AT&T, we had Verizon, and they monopolized. We had $100 plan. So basically, they control the cost. As soon as we break it up and open it up, and you see, like we have in the T-Mobile, we have in the Simple Mobile, and like everybody come in, the price drop. Because when you open up the system to price, the price.
I give you credit because you have said more than Donald Trump has on this issue. So I give you credit because you have a plan and he has none. So I give you credit.
Price will drop. Price will drop. Once competition comes in, price will drop, and you, the customer, will get better service. We're having $25 plan, $30 plan, $50 plan, because now the consumer is able to benefit. That's just an example of how healthcare will work.
We have to move on from this point. We are entirely out of time, so I'm going to ask Paul Clark to pose the last question in this segment. Paul?
Just a question to Mr. Powell, Ainsworth Powell. Misinformation in this time seems to be driving people's perception on several matters concerning the elections in the United States. One such, of course, as you rightly said, is the virus, the pandemic. But 50% of Americans disagree with Trump's handling of the issue. How then do you square, yourself being someone in the medical field, how do you square that bit of information with what you're seeing and your support for Donald Trump, given all that he says, lying several times about the impact of the virus, urging people not to wear masks? How do you square that?
Very good question, Mr. Clark, and that's one of the best questions I heard since tonight. One of the reasons how I would square it is what I've seen, being in the health insurance industry and being able to see the resources that we were able to get at short notice coming from the federal government. Cuomo had messed up, yes, when he sent all those COVID patients to the nursing home and killed 11,000 New Yorkers because they had. So, but what happened? He's allowing he helped the governors to get the necessary resources on time, quickly, the PPEs, the ventilators, everything that they asked for. Cuomo will tell you that he asked for, he got. He got a ship in New York that they turned into a hospital bed, which he didn't use. He got the Army Corps of Javits Center built at home. So he was able to funnel the necessary resources to the states to give them what they need during this case of the pandemic. So he was helping, and the governor.
That is just wrong. Wrong.
That he was able to give them the resources that they need when they were shutting it down to manage the resources.
Damion, quickly, Mr. Powell.
I have a Tomo on the record thanking him and being very, very responsive to his needs. I have him on listen.
And the governor of Maryland had to use his wife's connections in order to get PPP for the hospitals in the states of Maryland. Mr. Powell,
did you know that we had,
man.
Did you
Mr.
know
Powell.
that is initially? Did you know that we had to use the Defense Act to make companies start to make the PPE?
This is the problem that we're having. Is the level of misinformation.
Damon, I think you have I have a question.
Let me just close this section of the forum. We're entirely out of time for this section of our Gleaner Editors Forum. I want to say thanks so very much to Dr. Basil Wilson, former professor at the John Jay College of Criminal Justice and political commentator, Erwin Clare, director of Caribbean Immigrant Services, Ainsworth Powell, he's a nurse and a former member of the Jamaican Police Force and is a Republican supporter. Thanks also to Narda Moran, educator, businesswoman, and a Democratic supporter, and to Delia Walker-Huntington, an attorney. I'm Damion Mitchell, thanking you so very much for joining us for this special edition of the Gleaner Editors Forum.